to be fair. Yeah, I reckon as well, like, because obviously we've talked a bit about politics and it can be quite heavy. And since we're going to like split up the episodes, do you maybe want to tell us a little bit? Because I have tried to teach some of the students a little bit of Geordie slang. I don't know if you have much London slang, Essex slang that you've been able to teach the students, but do you maybe want to teach or tell us some Irish slang so they can get a little, I think the very obvious one, I don't know if it's classed as slang, but if you've noticed at all, Domhnall says we a lot in the middle of sentences. Sometimes it does just mean little, but sometimes you just add it in there for the crack, don't you?
Well, you'd add it in just so that you're like talking to someone, like it just means like you're more comfortable with them. Like you add it in so you don't sound as harsh. Like, yeah. So like, especially when I was working, and I was just like, back home, I'd always say like, oh, would you like a wee bag? And that's okay. Like, it's just like, so like you're more like down to earth, you're more like, oh, you're more like you'd feel more comfortable talking to someone. Whereas like if I was like, oh, do you want a bag? It sounds really harsh, and like it's just a really harsh thing to say. Whereas here, when I said, would you like a wee bag? They're like, no, I want a big one. I was like,
I don't mean little.
A little bag. I mean, it is just a little word to say before a sentence.
And they use it in Scotland as well, right? Is a Scottish thing?
I think
as
well?
So.
Yeah.
That's where I originally thought we was from, just because I know more Scottish people.
Yeah.
And they all say we. So like in my head, it's like it was a Scottish thing. I didn't realize it was Irish.
It's at the north. I think it's a north thing. Because I'm like, even Donegal says it as well. It's a northern, like not Northern Ireland, but
like geographically northern.
Yeah, like the whole of the Isle. I think the more north you go, the more you hear it, and the more south you go, you have a different whole dialect completely.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Donald, do you say crack as well in the same way that Alan does?
Yeah, but he spells it differently to me. So
he'll got an A in it, an I in it.
Yeah, and that's what you'll be like, what's the craic? And I'm like, no, it's not spelled like that.
You're like asking what the crack is, and I'm like, do you want some drugs? Like, what are you asking?
Because I'll spell it CRACK, but I think this is so. For a bit of context, I'm trying to learn some Irish, and I really struggle with like spelling versus sound. And if you ever look at the Irish language, it does not look anything like you pronounce it. It's very confusing.
No, but you're looking at it as an English brain, because like obviously you're going with English noises and you're like, oh, it means this, whereas like I'm going with an Irish brain going like, oh, this means this sound goes like this noise, because I've learned them words this way.
Yeah, true.
You learn this way.
But I just mean like in terms of like crack, like I spell how I say. So for me, I would say crack, so I spell it like the actual sound that comes out of my mouth, whereas you probably spell it more logically, like how it maybe is spelled. It just sounds different, if that makes sense. Like my brain just goes, oh, it must be spelled like this because it's pronounced like this, which isn't obviously always true. But what else do you use quite a lot that
I don't know? I'd say I want to go for a wee dander or something, but I think you use dander too.
Yeah, I think one thing I have noticed that you do is you will use just in a weird position in sentences. Like if you say like I would say I just want to go shopping, but you would say I want to go shopping just.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll read a sentence and I'm like, oh, translate it. Like it always confuses me where you put it. What else? I swear you were like, we've talked about this before, and you like were looking some up, try and find them. Obviously, there's the classic like pronunciation differences, like in terms of like everyone always gets Irish people to say the phrase power shower in an hour because you all say it really funny.
But in the north, yeah, we say power, and then but you're missing syllables in power though. You're going power or whatever you say. Power, is it, or
power?
Yeah, you have extra syllables in there. I'm like, where are these coming from? Is it not just
because you've got to say pow?
Power. Yeah, you're like power.
Power. Whereas even yours just all goes to one.
It's like so, like R is spelled H. Like it is that your whole like logic for like HOUR. You'd like, oh yeah, you would write that down as HOUR, but then you're saying hour. So would you not spell it completely differently then?
No, because hour.
No, because no R. There you go.
No.
You just,
don't prove me wrong. This is my podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hour could realistically be spelled HOWR, but yeah, our thing about
don't come on our podcast and prove me wrong, boy.
But yeah, English spelling's also a minefield.
Yeah.
Or I say data and you say data.
The struggle.
Which is But if you think about how do you say data, how do you, like, I don't get why you say data.
It's data. It just is.
But why?
You say data.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know why we just put a long A.
yeah, because like
Data.
you think
Data.
where's the E you're getting in data? Because like it's not date. Like you're not saying date. Where you're saying data.
Yeah.
I don't know where you put an E in it. Whereas like I'm saying it as data. Where
Data.
the two,
Data.
Data.
yeah.
Data.
So
What
and they
other
always
ones?
like when I say that.
I'm trying to think of other ones that you say.
Well, there's like kissing, the shift back home, or fake, or pull. Like you all say it differently. There's shift, like you go for a shift, which is like you get someone, or
just off for a shift.
yeah, it's a
Doesn't make any sense.
You saw that on the show, sure, like that Irish show you're watching, and you're like, oh, I just learned this.
Which Irish show?
I don't know, something with the guy from 50 Shades of Grey in it.
Oh yeah. It's called The Fall. It's a very confusing TV show. Don't recommend that at all. And yeah, we would say like you pull someone, or like you got with someone.
Yeah. Or
what would you say, Liv?
Either of those, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm just going for a shift.
Shift, that sounds so dodgy.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
It's from though, like Mary would say shift. Like if you went west, you would get meat. Do you want to meet at the beach? I remember that one. I was like, what are you saying? Because I was confusing the beach.
You want to kiss at the beach?
Yeah, because I remember hearing yeah, shift fake is a very culchy thing to say. I didn't really like fake. It's very vulgar.
What's culchy?
Like you're in the former land. You're in culchy land.
Okay.
I'd be considered a culchy, but I don't have a farm or anything.
Just because you're a countrysider. What about?
I feel like we need to clear up because I don't know about you, Amber, but the most stereotypical Irish phrase that I've ever heard of was "top of the morning." Does anyone actually say that, or is that a complete lie?
I've never heard anyone say that to me.
I was disappointed that was
but it's like when people say as well, isn't it, when they think of Australia and they like throw shrimp on the bar, like nobody would say that.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. It's going to be one of those stereotypical ones, but it's not one that people actually say. It's just like a key into the accent.
My mom says that you're my little lucky leprechaun, and I'm like, that's a bit weird. That's a bit weird, just because he's Irish.
No, I think it's because it came from a TV show or something, and then obviously it just built on that stereotype, like how a lot of stereotypes are built.
Yeah, so no, that would make sense.
Can you do an Irish accent?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
I thought you were asking me. I was like,
can you do one? Because it's whatever you're speaking now is really not very good.
But like, I feel like my Irish accent has went down a wee bit because like I feel like I've been speaking more longer with words because of when I've been over here, because everyone goes like, oh, what did you just say? But like when I'm drinking, I'll go more Irish. I'll go more my
or like
accent.
if you're talking about something, like it's really funny, like anytime like I see you talking with your friends, if you get into like a little bit of a tiff with them and you're like trying to get your point and you say something and you raise your voice, then you go really, really Irish, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from. Like if you're talking to Adam, I can't even think of a phrase that you would say, but you'd be like, no, it's not, and you go like really, really Irish, and I'm like, oh, that was unexpected. Very funny. You know, I was speaking of like slang and stuff. I had a class the other day that I was teaching like some Geordie slang and stuff, and I didn't realize for so long that the word spelk is a Northern English word. Do you understand the word spelk?
I've heard you say it a little time, but I just like
it's like when you get one of the little splinters in your finger.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that was a Northern thing, and it really freaked me out.
We didn't actually explain this from back earlier, but yeah, you two both say crack, but spelled different ways. That's not something that I.
Yeah, and crack is like, how are you?
Or like if someone's good crack, it means like they've got good chat, they've got good conversation. Like, oh yeah, I met her at the weekend, she's such good crack. It means like
but we always oh, that's good crack.
Yeah.
It's a phrase that in my head before I met you, Amber, I thought it was Irish only.
Did you actually?
Like I in my head, I knew it as the AI.
Spelling. I think, to be fair, that's an interesting point, because
crack does come from ours. For it's a I forget what word it is. It's like I think it's for like great fun, and like they use it in English. Then like a lot of like slang words come from Irish in the it's in smithereens come from the word smidgerini, which is shattered glass, and it's a very Northern Irish thing to say.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I did not know that.
No, I think that like it's interesting that you bring up the similarities, because I feel like anytime we've had a conversation about slang, we have discovered that we actually do have quite a lot that even if we didn't use them, like we understand, because, and I think it must be a geographically northern thing.
Yeah, I think we're now you're getting rid of like state boundaries now and just going for geographic boundaries.
Yeah, because there's so many things that you say that I understand just because I've heard them at home, or I would say them at home, but like I can't think of any. I'm so bad. We should have taken note of this before. I can't think of any off the top of my head other than craic.
Like we say bog as well. I don't know if you say bog for a lot
of
things.
Yeah, bog. Yeah, I've heard of bog before. But what do you use bog for?
Or like that's bog. Oh, boke. You don't say boke.
No, I don't say boke, but what do you say bog for?
Oh, that's bog and that's rotten.
See, we use bog means toilet. If you go like, oh, if you cleaned the bog. Yeah, it means have you cleaned the toilet? Or we say loo as well for toilet in the north of England.
What does boke mean? Doesn't it mean like...
Boke, you know what boke reminds me of? It's like same energy as like when we first met Liv and you used to start saying rogue.
Oh yeah,
like it's the same sort of energy. Like I know what you mean, but I would never use it. Like when you'll say it at the end of sentences, you'll be like boke, and it just means like sick. It means vomit.
Yeah, because you're boking up. You're like going to boke up. You're gonna be sick.
Boke up is not a phrase like I'd ever heard before, but like you'll be like, I can't even think of an example. Like say I was making like some food you didn't like, you'd be like, that's boke. And I'm like, okay, judgmental. But I never would use it. We'd just be like, oh, that's grim.
Another kissing one was courting, and it comes from courtship.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because it's like is that an old English thing?
Yeah, it's an old English thing for you.
To court someone.
Another slang, you would always, I didn't know it was slang. Half of the things that I come into my head that's slang, that you think is slang, it's not to me. So obviously I'm like, it's like gurn, like you're a big gurn or a yap. And you're like, what are you saying to me?
Yeah,
like you're crying, you're yapping, you're whinging, like
stop, stop. Yeah, yapping means whinging, like that makes sense.
That's gurn. Yeah, gurn and yap are the same thing, like stop gurning.
We do not have yapping in the south, just to put that we
would say yapping
or wished is another slang one where like, oh, you're like how long.
Yeah, with what?
Like how long, how your horses, like calm down.
Hold on. Okay. I didn't understand. I was like, hold on. What?
No, how long? Like hold your wished. Like hold your horses.
Wow. The more
I feel like we should say we're going to put all of these in the description.
Yeah, we'll write these all down.
We'll write a little glossary because I'm just thinking people can be listening and being like, what are they all saying right now?
Yeah. No, we'll write them all in the description. We can do like I'll put all of the things for like your brother's names and stuff at the start of the first one as well, so they can have a look at like how and yours, because you were so confused when you first saw Domhnall, because obviously I'd talked about you to Liv before Liv had ever like seen you on anything, and I posted like a thing from when you sent me flowers and I'd like tagged you in something and she clicked on it and she was like, that's not how I would have spelled that. Okay.
I had this just crisis. I was like, I swear Amber's been saying Domhnall to me.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things made sense.
Yeah, she was like, is somebody else sent you flowers? I don't understand. And I was like, no, that's him. That's him. And what I find cool as well, side note, is that you have like an actual like Irish name as well. Like if you were speaking Irish, you would say Domhnall McGregor, wouldn't you?
Well, that's my surname, yeah, because obviously like back when England came over and took over, we had to change our surnames to English names so that you wouldn't get discriminated against and like shunned out of the place. So obviously my names got changed over to English names. That's why like the counties are all called, like they're all called different things, because like Andoon, they made in Irish, Andoon means down, and it's only because yous came over or like Andoon, that sounds like down, we're making it down. So that's what yous did, like for every county. So you looked at the Irish pronunciation and spelling and changed to English. You were like, oh, that sounds like this. Yeah. Like so like that. Like Antrim is Antrim. And you just went on like that for ages.
That's so weird that they didn't like translate it or anything. They were just like, sounds like that. Let's go with that one.
He's got lazy. I think English is really lazy like that though for a lot of like words. Like you're like, sounds like this.
Sounds like it. Why not? Let's just go for it.
Because
Yeah,
like anyone really struggles, like because like it like you're saying a word and like it has multiple meanings. Like I can't even think of one off the top of my head, but I was using one earlier. I forget, but like you're saying one word and you're like you have to really get the context clues beforehand before you say it.
Yeah.
Like if someone was learning English, they would really struggle.
Yeah.
That's a real like I feel like that's a real like stereotype of like English back in like the 1800s, especially with like any name that isn't English, that it's like a thing that it's just like I'm reading a book at the moment that's set in like the 1800s and it's in New Zealand for like the gold rush, and any Englishman, because obviously all the Englishmen that are there are very rich and very wealthy, that's why they're in New Zealand digging for gold. Any person who's native or from anywhere else, they all put the person will say their name and they'll be like, I'm going to call you Ted, because that's what it sounds like. It's a almost stereotype like of British behavior of wealthy Brits back in like
used like back in the day was like you had a very like because like obviously you were a very big powerhouse of a country, so like you were like, oh well, we think this, we're going to say this, like it was a very like that kind of thing, whereas you didn't really care about the language, you were just saying it. Whereas France is a real like they felt like English were like colonizing them. That's when all like the internet was coming about. Like they had a big meeting and changed all their words from English to have a French meaning, and like properly thought about it for weeks and weeks before it was released into the language.
Yeah, I've heard that France like hates having English words in it, whereas like in German it's so like common, isn't it, that they just get a word and they're like, English, there you go. We'll just pronounce it slightly different. So
yeah,
it's a bit crappy. But
I would also use yoke as well, and then Amber's like, we never use that, but like I use it. Yeah, yoke, like, oh, there's a yoke, or that's some yoke, and it's just an object.
I've never heard you say that. Never. The only time I've heard like one of us has said that is if I go like, I'm joking, I'll go like, I'm yoking. I don't know why. That's the only time that I've heard it.
Or banjaxed I use as well, like when something's messed up, like it's completely gone, like you say banjaxed.
Banjaxed.
Absolutely banjaxed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never knew that one. Have you got any slang for Essex? I don't think I've ever heard you say any slang.
Oh no, I don't really, because of the fact that I don't speak with a much of an Essex accent, which means I don't use many of the words, at least not ones I can remember, like the ones that have been made famous by The Only Way is Essex. And like the fact that like if you read Joey Essex's biography, he's got a glossary in the back.
That's so funny.
The words that they've made up.
My favorite Joey Essex moment is when he was on I'm a Celebrity and he's off to a bush a trial, and there's a giant lizard on the thing on the bridge, and he's walking over and he goes, "Wow, there's a dragon on the bridge," and it's just a lizard. Like it's just a lizard.
Yeah. So as a side note, so there's the I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but like where both Amber and I are from have popular reality TV shows that give off very bad impressions of the areas that we're from.
Yeah, so like, when I get told like you're from Essex, I was like, oh, well, like it's a very stupid place. Like they're all like, yeah, like that's what it gives off. Like obviously the shows like perceive like they're all like really rich. They're really stupid. It's a thing.
Yeah, so the stereotype of the people from The Only Way is Essex, which is filmed in Brentwood, which is where I live. So it's even worse.
And you are the furthest thing from anybody I've ever seen on The Only Way is Essex. If I think of The Only Way is Essex and I think of you, I'm like, okay, complete opposite.
Exactly. So this is why I feel like I'm doing a public service, being like, not everyone from Brentwood or Essex is like The Only Way is Essex, but it's people who are very bad, like very poorly educated, they're always orange because they're fake tan so much, and they'll say the way they speak is perceived not very well. So it's sort of a frowned upon way of speaking because it's not very grammatically correct, and say they're very, very dumb tend to have more money. It's not like Made in Chelsea where it's people who are obscenely rich, but it's a little bit more like bit to more money than sense, and everyone's just kicking off in a pub all the time.
The best meme about it is definitely Gemma Collins. She goes, "I'm claustrophobic, Darren." I love that one so much.
I think that it's definitely like a stereotype of Essex girls. They're not only they're meant to be very dumb, but they're also incredibly feisty. So it's a lot of people getting into fights.
And very dramatic.
In pubs, yeah, very over dramatic because they've drunk so much. But yeah, so the words from that I don't tend to use. I can't remember where this tangent started.
Just talking about slang. Hey ho, we've had a discussion about the only way is Essex. Why not?
Essex. Yeah, no, I don't have as much that I use that I'm like aware of is something that only people like from the south east of England say. There's been one or two things that I've said to you that you've been like, I don't know what that means.
The only one I can think of is rogue, and that one that you say for tripped over.
Yeah, if you stack it.
Yeah, if you stack it, you fall over. It's the only one I've ever heard you say. Very weird. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking about Ireland. If anybody has any questions that they would like Domhnall specifically to answer about Ireland, if you either leave them down below or you can message one of us on Teams again, and I can forward it to him and get the answer for you and answer the said question. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope everybody has a lovely weekend and day. Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks very much.
Bye everyone.